Afternoon, everybody. Today we are in Trenton, New Jersey, outside the Trenton Battle Monument. Now, in this location, very important thing happened in our national history. Now, the first year of the Revolution in 1776, things were not going well for the colonials. General Washington and his army had been manhandled. They'd been driven horribly from New York, and things were not going well. And what had happened was the Hessians, they were German hirees, you could say. They were hired by the British to help them with the fighting. They were stationed here in Trenton, and they knew that what was called the colonial army was right across the river from them. But the Hessian general by the name of General Rowell wasn't the least bit worried about this, because they thought that the Americans were about a bunch of rabble. They were a bunch of poorly clad, the Germans and rather the Hessians were all professional soldiers. And so they knew that the Americans were right across the river, but they weren't even worried about it. So General Washington had a daring move. He decided to move his army across the river on the night of Christmas 1776. It was horribly windy, it was snowing, there was ice in the river. Nobody could actually thought they could make that move. But in the dead silence, he got over 2,500 men and 18 field guns across the river and marched secretly and quietly down the way to Trenton. Now, the Hessians were here in a military presence in Trenton. Now, it's been commonly believed that the Hessians were severely hungover from drinking heavily the night before, when that really wasn't the case. What had happened was, although the Germans loved their alcohol like everyone else did, what had happened was that they actually were on high alert. They'd be getting drilled and drilled and drilled, and they're doing skirmishes all over the place, to where they weren't actually sure if there was any sort of an attack. So, and plus General Rowell of the Hessians actually was given a piece of paper saying that the colonials were coming, and he actually stuffed it in his pocket and didn't think twice about it. He wasn't worried about it. And so it was actually in this location, right behind me where the memorial was placed, where the colonial army actually placed their artillery, and they were able to surprise the Hessian army. And they attacked fiercely. They were shocked because they thought the colonials would run, but the Hessians fought the best they could, but the colonials were able to fight, and they fight fiercely. And over the battle of 2 hours, it lasted 2 hours on the 26th of December, 1776, and they wound up taking over 900 Hessian prisoners, and the colonials lost less than a total of 12 men throughout the entire engagement. Some lost exposure to the elements. So what's most so important about this particular battle was the fact that it was very small in scale. I mean, less than 10,000 men were involved. But what it did is it actually shifted American point of view on the battle, on the war itself, because the Americans were quickly beginning to feel that there was really no way they could defeat the British. And then the British were very close to breaking American morale with the colonials to get them to pretty much give up. But this actually helped this and the Battle of Princeton, which would happen a short while later, would help to get the word throughout the colonies that the American army was more than just a band of rabble. And they actually had enlistments, and they had enlistments, people signing up all over the place. Because another thing Washington did was he made a major gamble on this, because almost all of his men, their enlistments were going to run out at the end of the month, and so he had to make a big move in there. So by doing that, he saved his army, he talked the men into staying, and he also made it so that more men enlisted, and that American morale actually survived and would persevere off and on throughout the remainder of the wars. And this could be viewed as the turning point in the war. One British lord by the name of Lord Germain would say to the House of Commons 3 years later that all our hopes were blasted by that unhappy affair at Trenton. They credit this was pretty much the turning point of the war, because the Americans were not going to lie down after that. So there you go.